Another Friday afternoon in this consciousness and stuff sort of thing. And my thought for today was that I've, well, actually, the truth is, my thought is I have these thoughts often that I want to share beyond just kind of the airy fairy consciousness stuff. And I want to share some like real thoughts and feelings about what's going on in the world and I want to do so through the lens and through an understanding of consciousness and stuff. But the fact of the matter is there's some things happening in the world that I'm not okay with and I'm very critical of, and I wanted to kind of use this as an opportunity to explore the conversation of being critical versus criticizing and being critical of something versus like doing that in a healthy way versus doing that in a way that is blaming and not really taking responsibility for myself and my state of mind and state of being. And of course, we can be critical of others. We can be critical of stuff. We can be critical of things. We can be critical of projects and creations in the world. And we can also be critical of ourselves. And we can do that in a healthy way. I think that criticism is kind of misunderstood. But really, criticism is required for growth, for evolution, for construction, right? We talk about constructive criticism. We use the term constructive criticism, but really all criticism can be constructive and should be constructive. So I want to share criticism today, and I want to do so in a constructive way. And I thought a good place to start would be where to go. I was going to share a little graphic, and I'm going to find it. And are you guys on Telegram? Do you guys use Telegram? Do you guys know what Telegram is? I guess I'm plugged into some Telegram channels where people are sharing stuff, and I really like it. I think it's entertaining because it's very well. I guess it can be anonymous, but I'm not anonymous on it. But I guess so can Facebook and Instagram and kind of our conventional social media. But in any case, I've been enjoying getting some like humor, some lightness from telegrams, from some Telegram channels, and also some information. And where is this? Okay, so here's something that I found. I come this way. Here's something that I found. This is a 5-step COVID jab risk benefit analysis that any 7-year-old could understand. Yeah, so anyone can understand this and can kind of put on our critical thinking mind cap and understand the risks and benefits of a jab or anything, right? We can use our critical thinking mind. So question number one: will it stop me from getting COVID? Turns out this experimental biologic V word. The V word is being used, but it turns out that it doesn't really stop anyone from being infected with the C word. So the V doesn't stop the C. Will it stop me from spreading the C, the COVID? No, it doesn't, because we still get it and we still have the risk of spreading it. And that's why the people who seem to be in charge of all this kind of stuff are telling us that we need to continue doing all of the things, continue being essentially obsessive compulsive about germs, continue drenching ourselves in antibacterial agents, continue restricting our airflow and wearing masks, continue to isolate and physically distance ourselves, and essentially cut off our life, cut off our source and access to well-being, because we know that our health, our well-being comes from being in the world, comes from being exposed to other life and interacting with other life. So anyways, point number 2, will it stop me from spreading? No. The jab will not stop us from spreading the C word. Has it been long-term safety tested on humans? This one's a definite no. We've been kind of celebrating the fast track of this experimental biologic agent, but in reality, it's cool that science has been science, quote unquote, has been moving fast in this way, and it's cool that we can get humans organized and collaborating and creative and on board to find something and to do something. But the fact of the matter is that there hasn't been any long-term safety studies on human beings for this V word, as well as any other V word. Usually the safety studies, last for a few months, and we think about kind of the acute effects of the jab, but we're not really playing the long game with our health as human beings. And the chronic disease epidemic, the big picture long-term chronic disease epidemic is showing us that we need to start playing the long game, thinking about the consequences of our choices and actions. Have there been any deaths and injuries caused to date due to the jab? And there have, the number of which is kind of unknown, right? Because there's this adverse event, this V-word adverse event reporting system, the VAERS website, which people go on and report their adverse events. And to my understanding, it was several weeks ago, like at least a few weeks ago, there were over 500 deaths on the VAERS website. And those, of course, are not like verified. They're not like, oh, this was definitely due to this. But we know that it's really like, it's just so interesting that, all right, people have, their comorbidities, whether they're overweight or with diabetes or cancer or high blood pressure or, cardiovascular disease. And then they're run down, right? And then they kind of catch something and die. And then the cause of death is the needle or the straw that broke the camel's back. But when we're talking about the cause of deaths due to vaccinations, there's a lot of healthy people, seemingly very healthy people, at least on this VAERS database, that going about their life, getting a jab, and death. So yes, there have been. Are the makers liable for any damage or injury caused by the jab? No. They're not. And this is due to the Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, where, the government came in and helped these pharmaceutical companies because they were losing money so rapidly, paying out lawsuits due to adverse reactions from the jabs. And so now these pharmaceutical companies, these manufacturers, are not held liable for the consequences of their product. So, all right, analysis summary: high risk, low benefit. Any questions? Any questions? And by the way, speaking of questions and comments, I realized that I don't think comments are coming in through my software here. So I apologize if you're commenting and I can't see it. But that's that. And I'll show it one more time, because people might still be like, oh well, the high risk, low benefit. But if this, like, what's the risk of dying from the C word, right? What's the risk of dying from the C word versus dying from the V word? Because let's face it, life is kind of dangerous, life is kind of risky, and death is inevitable. And we want to prevent death, we want to extend life. How can we best do that? So the risk of dying from the V word is very much up in the air, to be determined. For sure, people are dying from the V word. But the risk of dying from the C word, do you guys remember this one? This was put out by the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention. One of our favorite organizations, right? They're so trustworthy, never change anything, right? They're just, helping us out, sharing the truth. I'm kind of being facetious because they are changing a lot of things. And by the way, their website is like ridiculously, it's always changing, and it's very difficult to manage. And in my experience, at least, in getting like, I I can find this information still on their website. This, the age group and the infection fatality rate and the survival rate according to each age group from the infection of COVID-19. But it's really hard. It's hard to track this stuff down. But it's still there, and it's still the truth. That so the risk of dying from the C word is quite low. Quite low. Of course, unless you are 70 or above. And by the way, these numbers, the people who died, the fatality rate, the average the average person who died of the C word in 2020 had, I think it was 2.6 comorbidities. So more than 2, less than 3. So a comorbidity being a diagnosis that was associated with increased risk of fatality, such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease. I think those are the 2 big ones, and chronic respiratory issues. So back to the point of me being here, because you've probably seen stuff like that and just, it's like, oh my gosh, so much information. But back to the point of me being here and opening up my mouth and risking criticism and canceling, because let's face it, I don't want to do this. I don't. I don't want to like go against the narrative, but we've got to be critical of the narrative. We do, because the narrative is not helping us out. And in fact, the narrative is kind of like destroying society. I mean, just look at what's happening in the world. I just was scrolling the Facebook and saw a video shared of a little girl. She must have been, in elementary school, and she learned that she was able to go back to school after being out of school for a year, because she was told she can't go to school. And remember, boy, she had a high chance of dying, right? This 12-year-old girl, 0.00003% chance of dying from this thing. And her life was put on hold for a year. Her education was put on hold for a year. And she learned that she was able to go back to school, and she was like crying tears of joy. And it really was emotional for me to watch as well, just because, boy, my life, I feel so blessed that things really haven't changed all that much in terms of my day-to-day in the past year. But here we are celebrating as some people have put it, close to the 1-year anniversary of our 15 days to flatten the curve. Because remember, this was never about like making sure nobody died or making sure nobody caught this thing, because let's face it, we are human beings. We live on planet Earth. On planet Earth, there are all sorts of microorganisms that are coexisting with us, part of our ecosystem. And our goal is not to be in a bubble. That doesn't happen. It doesn't help us. If it were to happen, we wouldn't be healthy if we could be in bubbles. So anyways, I remember learning about this curve thing, and we were going to flatten it to avoid overwhelming our healthcare facilities. And boy, did we flatten it? I don't know. Have we done the thing yet? Are we done? Did we do our thing? Did we flatten this thing? Um, and I honestly knew from the get-go that this had nothing to do with health. I knew that this had nothing to do with your well-being, your safety. I knew this had to do with control, and I knew this had to do with fear and selling us something, selling us some magical fix, both in the form, of course, of our pharmaceutical, experimental, biologic, as well as the magic fix of the government coming in and helping us and picking us up after we've fallen down. But really, the government kicked us down. The powers that shouldn't be kicked us down, and then they fly in like saviors, lifting us up with some checks, some handouts, these kind of things. And that's not what we need, right? That's actually not serving us. It's a very, very abusive relationship that we have with our public servants. Remember, that's what they are. Our government officials, our public servants. We pay their paychecks, and they abuse us. We are being abused. So it's time that we be critical. There's nothing wrong with being critical of your abuser. There's nothing wrong with feeling abused. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the abuse and being very critical so as to put an end to it. And that's really what I've been spending my entire year pondering, is how the heck are we going to put an end to the abuse that we are subject to? And I think it has to do with collective criticism, collective, non-aggressive, peaceful, definitely peaceful. There's no point in being violent, right? That doesn't help anything. Peaceful, civil disobedience, disobeying, because what we're being told to do doesn't make any sense. Zero sense making in the narrative. And it's just like, it makes sense if we're told to believe it. If we're told to believe everything, then it makes sense. If we outsource our common sense, if we give our common sense making abilities to them, to anyone, and then we're told to believe what we should believe, and then we believe what we're told to believe, then it's like, okay, la-di-da, let's do this. All right, I'll do what I'm told. Yeah. But if we're doing that, does it feel good? That's something that only each individual can answer, right? Does it feel good to not think for yourself, to not be critical of what you're being told to do or not do? Does it feel good to completely outsource your common sense and well-being and health to authoritative figures who supposedly have more control, even though the control and power that they do have, we give it to them? I'm not giving it to them, but collectively they are given their power. They don't deserve it. They haven't earned it. And anyone who is in power, any and quote unquote power, anyone who is in charge, our public servants, we must criticize them. We must stay critical of them. And from my understanding of our country and the formation of our country, it was birthed from criticism. We were, we, the American people, were critical of how things were going over there in Europe, right? And we wanted a revolution. And we, the people, created that. And then our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, states that our basic human inalienable rights, this Declaration of Independence in our Constitution states that it's for protecting the people from the government. It has nothing to do with protecting the government or giving power to the government or control and decision-making ability to the government. The whole premise is protecting and empowering we the people. And we have been, I think, maybe brainwashed, I don't know, to forget this basic fact, these basic truths. And back to the point of me opening up my mouth today, being critical, being, compassionately, lovingly, peacefully critical. And the requirement for that is for us to critically think and then express and share our criticism from a grounded state, right? And it's hard for me to do that. Like I said, I came up on here and it's like, this is not my, I feel much more unsettled today than I have on previous Fridays because I don't want to be talking about this. I feel like I'm not the person to be talking about this. But at the same time, we need to be talking about this. We need to be having the difficult conversations. We need to be putting ourselves in difficult positions because the position that we are being put in doesn't feel good. And unfortunately, when I open up my mouth and share what's really important to me, there are going to be people who want nothing to do with it and who will cancel me or unfriend me or block me or unfollow me or whatever. And I'm pretty sure the term for that is cognitive dissonance, turning our heads the other way to avoid seeing what we don't want to see, which there's nothing wrong with that. We are going to look and see what we're going to look at and see when we're ready to see it. But the point is that I really feel like whoever is feeling like they're ready to be critical, we need to open up our mouths and share our criticism peacefully and raise awareness, because my understanding, what I feel, the vibe that I get is that there is well over one half of our population, well over one half of the people are very unhappy, are unhappy, unsettled, not at peace with the way things are going, right? Some people are like, okay, I'll deal with it. I just got to do what I'm going to do. Maybe when 2022 comes, things will be better. What's going to happen between now and 2022 that things are just automatically going to get better? I'll admit, sometimes I am sitting back thinking, wouldn't it be nice if some literal superhero flew in and just unveiled the truth for us all to see? I would love nothing more than to be a part of that scenario where we have a savior literally save us by bringing to light all that is in the darkness, all that is in the shadows, and letting we the people being exposed to and immersed in the truth so that we can once and for all live a peaceful and more beautiful life. I want that scenario too, but I don't really I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. I'm not very hopeful for that. I know that the grassroots movement is really the only way that anything has happened in the past. You know, the American Revolution was not due to a savior. It was due to the majority of unsettled citizens who wanted to live a more perfect life. And they made that happen by declaring their independence and fighting for it. Well, it was brought to my awareness. What's the whenever I'm on the spot, I always kind of have uh, drop blanks. But oh yeah, land of the free, home of the brave. Whatever happened to that? Land of the free, home of the brave. Where is the brave? Where are the brave? Who is brave? Gosh. So I guess I'm trying to be brave. Honestly, I've never like read a book on how to be brave or taken a seminar on how to be brave. But I think it's standing up for what you know to be true in your heart and having the conversations and not being quiet, because being quiet and being small and biting your tongue doesn't move the needle in the direction that we need to. That's not to say that um, really, I guess the first step is to be willing to open your eyes and see and know something that doesn't feel good or feel right. Let's face it, it's easier to just be told what to believe and go with it. But choosing the path of thinking for oneself, like that's an important thing to do. And then each of us are going to take the next step based on our skills and programming and mindset in the moment, and just abilities and whatever our gifts are. And some people are kind of the quiet the quiet folks, but those of us who have a voice, who are willing to share our voice, um, do it. Do it. We need to hear it. We really do. And like I said, I don't. The, by no means does it come naturally to me, but we need to be critical. We need to criticize what is going on. Otherwise, things. It's crazy. It's crazy. There was one more little graphic that I wanted to share. Oh boy. Can I do this? This one just caught my eye. Hope it's okay I'm doing this. So, Facebook promotes videos of Bill Gates, who is not a doctor, pushing a vaccine, but bans videos of actual doctors talking about a cure. There are cures. There are cures. Like, your health is inside of you, and you can switch it on and cure anything by tapping into that, by nourishing yourself, by taking some natural, quote unquote, alternative agents that have been completely banned and censored. Yeah, the same people who sell the panic sell the pill. And I was criticized for sharing a little expose on my favorite current philanthropist, who is Mr. Bill Gates. And I'm not an expert of him. I've read a lot and watched a lot, and maybe you have too. But the scary thing is, the scary reality is that this man, Mr. Bill, he not only controls to a large extent the pharmaceutical industry and the the cure that we're being sold, which has nothing to do with being a cure. Like we said, we already looked at this thing, right? Remember this? Just real quick, remember this? Will it stop me from getting it? Will it stop me from spreading it? Has it been long-term safety tested? Have there been any deaths? Are the makers liable for any damage or injury? This has nothing to do with a cure. But anyways, back to Mr. Bill. So he not only does he control the pharmaceutical company to such a large degree, and the CDC and the WHO and all the sources of quote unquote scientific information that we receive, but he also controls the big tech and the media. So he controls the viewpoint, the large mainstream viewpoint that people have of him. So he has branded himself as a philanthropist, and people believe that he is doing good. And I'm not saying that he might be doing good. I'm not completely 1000% sure, although I'm pretty sure that he's not doing good. But the fact is, once again, we must be critical. We must be critical. We must think critically. We must question everything. We must stay vigilant in our criticism, which, once again, we're like told to just not be critical. We're told to just be nice and just go along with it, and everything's going to be okay. We're told to just like be polite. Don't criticize. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And that all sounds good. But it's also true that we can be critical from a place of love and from an intention of service. We're not criticizing Mr. Bill Gates or Mr. whoever for being a bad person. We're criticizing what they're doing and recognizing that might not be in the highest interest for the collective. Maybe the collective, maybe the individuals together should decide how they want to live their lives. Maybe we should live our lives the way we want to live them. Maybe we have the wherewithal to do that. Maybe we don't need to be told how to live our lives. That's really what this is about. This is about choosing to be your own sovereign being and to live your own life and to not take shit from no one. What just came to mind was that little scene from the Jamaican bobsled team, Cool Runnings. Oh my gosh, I would love to like share that clip of that. You guys know who I'm talking about? Junior. Yeah, he's talking to his dad, and he's like, I take no shit from nobody. So it's time to take no shit from nobody and to live our lives. Like literally, just do it. Just do it. Just live it. Just be it. And we need to not feel like we're doing something wrong for doing something right. It's time that we feel in the right, because living your life, that's what we're here to do. We are given a life to live. We're not given a life and then told how to live it under what conditions and restrictions. So it's time that we like stand in ourselves, stand in our sovereignty, and make our own decisions and not feel bad about doing it. Not feel like we're doing anything wrong, because we're doing everything right. And as we individually choose to step into our power and live our own lives, we give other people the permission to do the same. Sometimes some people need leaders. So be a leader. We need more leaders. I don't feel like I'm a leader, but I feel like I'm being called to be a leader because I don't see that many. There are leaders. Oh my gosh, there are leaders, and I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing my voice if there weren't already people sharing theirs. So my hope is that my criticism, my critical thinking, first of all, I hope that it comes from a place of peace and love. I hope you feel, yeah, I'm a little bit riled up, but really, I'm in peace. I'm in strength. I hope you feel that. And I also hope that you feel maybe an ounce of inspiration to feel okay critically thinking yourself and to share your perspective, to live your life, and to not do so from a place of feeling wrong, feeling like you're doing something wrong. Because as you do that, you'll give other people, it's a ripple effect. You'll give other people the opportunity and permission to step in their strength and power. So that's about all I've got. Hope it's okay that this was, I think it's still along the lines of consciousness and stuff, because let's face it, there's a lot of people standing up doing something, but we need the standing up and doing something to be coming from a place of understanding who we are in this whole big game of life. And with that place of understanding who we are, what we say, how we say it, what we do, how we do it, just comes through so much more powerfully and effectively. And that's the world that I want to live in. So thanks for helping to create it, helping to be a part of it. And that's all I got for now. So peace and love, you guys. Thanks for being with me. And as always, feel free to leave a comment, leave some feedback. Let me know how this lands. And as always, feel free to share. But plan on being back here, same time, same place next Friday. And until then, peace and love.